Many games rely on the HUD and movement to provide information to the player of what to do. I ask, what happens when you play Witchfire without a HUD and not running? Starting with walking, Witchfire's maps feel great. One objective is never too far from another, and walking across the map never takes too long. It also helps that if you want, much of the world is very climber friendly. Climbing will also sometimes reward you with a chest, along with a handy shortcut. It's also appreciated, while you can technically run without stamina, it will keep you from dashing until you stop. This is a nice system to encourage the player to walk, with the utility of avoiding potential attacks being traded for more expedient travel. It's also aided by the scenery, as this game has unfathomable levels of immersion to it. It has stunning visuals that'll lull you into the atmosphere and role of the prayer, the character you play as. Among the different areas you'll explore, you'll find an attachment to a world that's not only alive, but feasible it could exist in our own. Furthermore, the weapons are equally as detailed. Witchfire does a wonderful job of merging the modern with the medieval in their aesthetics. They all have their own weight and feel to fire, and the sound design makes them feel as powerful as a witch hunter's arsenal ought to be. The only critique related to walking relates to some of the mini-bosses located around the open world. Upon entering combat, dealing enough damage will cause them to flee to a secondary or tertiary location. This is more of a hassle than you may think when, like me, you force yourself to walk everywhere. Suddenly having your query skedaddle somewhat breaks the attention of encountering them, particularly when they're found idle at the next location, seemingly unaware of the past 5 minutes. I will admit this is a bit of a nitpick. This doesn't apply to many of the mini-bosses, and where it does is likely for game design purposes. The boss running away gives the player time to recuperate and resupply, and plan how they want to engage next. This respite is also useful when the next handicap is considered. As typically, playing a game without a HUD isn't advisable. Information like health, items you obtain, waypoints, and prompts are crucial to accomplish your current objective. But Witchfire is complete not only with a fully customizable HUD, but having context clues as to what everything does when it's absent. The only pop-up you get is the low ammo and no ammo prompts, which is perfectly acceptable for a game where you primarily shoot. When you start Witchfire this way, aside from the tutorial prompts, you're left with only your wits about you. When you pick up items, it doesn't tell you what you picked up. Sometimes the game doesn't even give you a prompt to interact, and it's up to you to discover it. The prior is remedied by being able to look at your inventory to see what you've collected. The latter, by observing the world state. Has something spawned? Has a sound cue played? Is the sky suddenly swirling in a red maelstrom? This is also where the handbook proves useful. As you progress through the game, it will be updated with details you've encountered, with a small description on what it is, does, and leads to. This resource is immensely useful for one who doesn't use the HUD, and compared to most games which exclude it, is a much appreciated feature. Through this contextual gameplay, as I'll call it, Witchfire also extends this to combat. Aiming without a reticle is initially difficult, though as you learn the weapon, you become more familiar with its firing pattern and effective range. These guns also have innate abilities that will activate once you fulfill a condition. For the default revolver, named Hunger, whenever you score a critical hit on a foe, the next cylinder will have an empowered round loaded into it. The game shows you this by the cross primer on the bullet glowing blue rather than orange. It has a further empowered state whenever every bullet you fire is a critical hit. When you reload, the barrel becomes encased in ice, showing the player that their next hit will deal bonus frost damage. This aspect of combat applies to every gun in the game, and each one has its own unique abilities and skills. The game ensures that if your gun is doing something cool, you're aware of it and know to keep doing it. An initially confusing aspect of this game was being able to tell when you're low health. It was an issue I had in Dragon Age and among other titles where the game either struggles or outright doesn't tell you your HP. Though as you learn and practice more about combat, you'll notice there are warnings when you dodge or jump that will indicate your character's status. It's shown as a progressive system of heartbeats and a red vignette whenever you use mobility that isn't walking. So if you dodge at 40% health, you'll get a different intensity of heartbeat and border than if you're at 10%. The only critique I can offer for the no-HUD combat experience is that you can't be sure if your spells are ready to cast. They seem to charge up after dealing damage to enemies, no doubt to encourage a more aggressive style of play. I will admit this is never a real issue, though it's something to be aware of. This also applies to the Calamity events that can happen. Whenever you interact with certain objects in the world or get damaged by enemies, it slowly raises a 5-tiered system that will eventually cause a Calamity. During this, you'll have to fight off enemies as you desperately rush towards a red beacon in the sky. Doing so and living will reward you, while not making the deadline will result in death. It's very thematic and intriguing to suddenly be thrust into this cataclysm and experience a dread through your character's eyes that you've flown too close to the sun. But on the other hand, there's very little warning that such an event is going to occur. If you wish to avoid it, you more or less have to go based on faith alone, which further leans into the almost cinematic nature of this game. This is something that I still can't place how I feel about it, as balancing fairness and spectacle is often tricky. I'd say that it's serviceable though, as you need to stumble quite a bit to trigger one. This game does a stellar job of making encounters engaging in this way, which is only enhanced without the HUD active. Not knowing how much ammo, resources, and just how close to the Calamity is from wreaking havoc is downright thrilling and terrifying. Having to use your ears to hear if you're being ambushed, or listening to the distinct sounds of snipers taking aim at you demands a respect for the game's design. Thankfully, there's a queue for everything in this game. You need only the knowledge and curiosity to heed it. Even when the interactables don't emit sound, you can interact with them, they'll glow and shine a different color to communicate that to the player. It's evidence of flawless game design when you can play and complete a game without ever being told what to do, where to go, or how to do it. This is also something the game does rather well in regards to combat and exploration. You can explore for as long as you want and engage enemies when you're ready. You set the pace in this game, as encounters are relegated to specific parts on the map. The only exception is the escape portal, which will occasionally spew out an enemy or two that will gradually home in on your location. These are typically normal enemies, and their existence is to keep you on your toes, even when you've completed all of the enemy camps. It's a good system that introduces danger in a rather non-intrusive way. It also lends itself to make the world feel alive and immersive. There are reasons and explanations given by the game why you're fighting these infinite hordes of enemies. Your foes are nothing more than replicas of a progenitor, conjured by the witch who is corrupting the world. It would be in our interest to hinder your escape back to your base, called the Hermitorium. It's here you can research new weapons, buy supplies, level up, and otherwise prepare for your next expedition. You have to plan ahead for these as well. Having the right gun, spell, or buff active can make all the difference when exploring certain areas. A strong example of this is a comparison of the first and third locations. Isle of the Damned is an island with a central structure called the Wailing Tower. This area is open with plenty of elevation, making it ideal for long-range tactics such as snipers or semi-automatic rifles. The city of Velmorn, however, is a claustrophobic experience complete with sewers and tight alleyways. Naturally, you want to come prepared with close-range options such as shotguns and rapid-fire weapons. Of course, you can use whatever you like, though the game will reward you for preparing appropriately. The final aspect of immersion I'll touch on is the game's mechanic of Gnosis. You can increase this by completing challenges in different areas. Raising your Gnosis grants you access to new weapons, spells, locations, tools, areas, and much more. What it also does, however, is make the game more difficult. The witch senses your growth and power and will strengthen her forces against you. This is already a fantastic element to add to a game. It is not only warranted difficulty, it's voluntary. It also adds more than making enemies tankier. It adds new enemies, events, traps, and bosses for you to encounter. The game warns you of this, and once you deepen your knowledge, you cannot undo it. It teaches a lesson to those who rush in without consideration. The game tries to teach you patience. The art of showing rather than telling is dying, not only in movies and stories, but in gaming as well. There's usually an aspect you can only know or learn of through the game directly telling you. Whether it's reticles, health bars, or ammo count, most times these aren't diegetic to the game. This leaves the game feeling more like you're being guided through it, rather than a form of art you're experiencing as the player character does. This is rather fitting, as Witchfire seems to be made with the consideration towards players who want to play without a HUD, and to those with the patience to walk. It proves to be a masterclass in game design and subtle storytelling. It has not only checked all of my boxes, but has exceeded them. I cannot recommend this game enough to someone who wants to have an unforgettably immersive and enjoyable experience. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time.